This morning, a desperate operation underway to save the residents of an aged care facility in Sydney ravaged by COVID-19. The government's COVID tracking app praised by independent security experts. They say it's safe to download. And bombshell accusations from the White House. The US Secretary of State says he has overwhelming proof the virus came from a lab in Wuhan.
This is 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good morning. New South Wales residents could soon see coronavirus restrictions eased after several other states had their first weekend with wound-back measures. Meanwhile, an urgent operation is being carried out to move residents from a virus-stricken aged care home in Sydney. Live to Evan Batten. Good morning, Evan. Staff at Newmarch House will begin having daily tests from today.
And absolutely. Finally, some good news out of Newmarch House. We have this morning heard no reported increases in the number of residents who have coronavirus and certainly no increase in the number of deaths. And that, as you say, is allowing authorities to focus on contact tracing as the family members, relatives of those within the facility there look to find alternative accommodation for them. Now, really what we're being told by health authorities is that the scenario there at the facility might be a lot more complex than was first thought. We knew that at least one infected healthcare worker went to work for several days while infectious, and now at least 14 people have died and more than 60 residents have coronavirus at that facility there. Now they are working on the scenario that more than one worker at the facility may have brought coronavirus there. They've also learnt a little bit more about the anatomy, if you like, Anne, of the coronavirus strain.
The virus that got into the nursing home is a virus that was circulating in the community. There's linkages between a number of other clusters, so it is the virus that was circulating in the community.
And Evan, there's been another confirmed case in a city school.
And isn't it pleasing, though? Only one new case of coronavirus in the whole of New South Wales, and that's despite a record number of tests being carried out for a Sunday. 5,000, in excess of 5,500. But Anne, as you say, a 7-year-old boy now has come down with coronavirus. He goes to the Warragamba Public School, which is now closed. Of course, they are doing a deep clean at that facility over the next couple of days while all the other students go back home for homeschooling, and they try to do contact tracing to work out what other teachers or students that 7-year-old may have come into contact with. And the Premier says that we should expect a spike in the coming weeks as restrictions are eased and more students go back to school. But pleasingly, Anne, she says the health system is ready for it.
Evan Batten reporting. Thank you, Evan. Queensland Police will beef up patrols on the Gold Coast today following the state's first weekend with scaled-back coronavirus restrictions. Officers were called in to disperse large crowds at a popular park in Burleigh yesterday afternoon after hundreds of people gathered to watch the sunset. Many groups of people were in clear defiance of the 1.5-metre social distancing rule. However, no fines were handed out. An independent panel of cyber security experts has praised the security of the government's coronavirus app as millions moved to download it over the weekend. Political reporter Taylor Aiken is live in Canberra. Taylor, the experts say it can't be hacked.
Good morning, Anne. That's right. The app has been scrutinised by the nation's top cyber security experts, with an independent inquiry finding the app is in fact secure. Experts from the Cybersecurity Cooperative Research Centre found the data held on the app was less than the information collected by the top social media networks, including that of Facebook. A review of the source code of the COVIDsafe app also found that it could not be accessed by hackers, nor could it be used for surveillance by the government. Deputy Chief Medical Officer Nick Coatsworth has this morning stressed the importance of registering for the app, but the Nationals MP Barnaby Joyce is standing firm in refusing to download it.
I have to be allowed, as other people, the freedom to say no. If you're going to make it compulsory, come out and say it.
The logic is that the more Australians that we get with the app on their phone able to make that digital handshake with other people that they've been in contact with, the easier the job will be for our disease detectives.
Already, more than 4.4 million Australians have downloaded the app, far exceeding the government's expectations. However, despite initially setting a target of 6 million downloads, or about 40% of the population, the National Cabinet is still expected to begin winding back some of those tougher social restrictions later this week. Anne.
Taylor Aiken reporting. Thank you, Taylor. New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro has announced he will not run as a candidate for the federal seat of Eden Monaro. The State Nationals Party leader said his decision was difficult, but he can do more for the people of the electorate as a state member.
Sometimes in this game you let ego get in the way of good decisions, and I've got to make the best decision for me, my family, for the people of New South Wales.
The move paves the way for a Liberal candidate to take the seat, namely New South Wales Transport Minister Andrew Constance. Former North Melbourne coach and premiership champion Dean Laidley remains behind bars in Melbourne after being arrested over the weekend. But the case has taken an unexpected turn, with photos of the 53-year-old being questioned in custody leaking online. Cameron Bowe reports.
Victoria Police is facing scrutiny over the arrest and the processing of Dean Laidley. The release of photos of Laidley in custody is being taken very seriously. The former North Melbourne coach was arrested on Saturday night. At the time, he was dressed in a wig and female clothing and identifying as a woman. Photos were taken of Laidley being interviewed by police and of his mugshot. In a matter of hours, those photos had landed on social media. Victoria Police has acknowledged that this situation is a significant breach of privacy. The Professional Standards Command is investigating the leak. Part of their task will be to identify how many police members were involved in the leaking of the photos. There is a chance that other agencies will launch their own investigations too. Laidley is a life member at North Melbourne, where he played and coached. He's been out of the AFL for some years, but still involved in community football. The 53-year-old remains in custody. He's facing charges including stalking. He's due to return to court next Monday.
Constable Glenn Humphreys, one of the 4 police officers killed in that Victorian crash, is being laid to rest today. His coffin was brought to his hometown of Newcastle, north of Sydney, over the weekend. The 1,000-kilometre procession came a week after he was killed by a truck while attending a traffic stop on a Melbourne freeway. Westpac's first half cash profit has plunged 70% under soaring bad debt provisions, coupled with the potential of record anti-money laundering fines. Our finance editor Gemma Acton joins us live. Hello, Gemma. A tough time for all the banks right now, but Westpac has admitted this is its worst result in a decade.
No more rosy, with Chief Executive Peter King saying the remainder of the year will still be challenging. Around 105,000 of the bank's mortgage customers have already opted to defer repayments, with 31,000 business loans also on hold. The bank has also said it will postpone its decision on paying an interim dividend until later this year. Last year it paid 94 cents in June. Westpac has also announced a major review of its wealth management, auto finance and insurance businesses, raising the likelihood it will exit all of them.
So, Gemma, how's the market responded to the news?
Well, and Westpac shares have held up reasonably well. They're trading lower, but pretty much in line with the rest of the market. This is likely due to the fact Westpac announced a lot of the bad news already last week, revealing the money it had set aside to cover AUSTRAC and COVID-19 issues, so investors were really prepared. Overall, it's been a pretty bleak start for Aussie shares, but they're gaining back a little ground now. The ASX 200 is currently down by around 0.3%.
Gemma Acton reporting. Thank you, Gemma. The British public remain fearful of catching the coronavirus, with a new poll revealing most are against lifting the country's lockdown laws. Hugh Whitfield is in London. Hugh, what else did the poll reveal?
More than 28,500 Britons have now died from coronavirus, and there is continued criticism of the way the government has handled the crisis. So this poll may not be a surprise. 4 out of 5 Britons believe that reopening restaurants and pubs now would be simply too early, and less than 10%, just 7% of people believe that crowds should be allowed to return to sporting matches and to concerts. Later in the week, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson will lay out what Downing Street is calling a roadmap to the eventual lifting of coronavirus lockdown measures. But even if people are given concessions, and there may only be a few in the first stage of the lifting of the lockdown, they may not be willing to go outside. There is a belief within the government that there may be coronaphobia within the community, and people will simply be still too scared to go out. Such is the fear of contracting coronavirus here. Spain has had some of the toughest restrictions in place. For the first time over the weekend, young people and older people were allowed out of their homes, the first time in 7 weeks, albeit they're only allowed out at certain times. Time slots have been allocated to certain age groups. And in Germany, churches have welcomed back the faithful for the first time in 7 weeks. The congregation there, socially distant. These pictures from inside Cologne Cathedral, where the choir was kept apart as well, and the priest was serving communion from behind a plastic screen. Europe, like the rest of the world, still a long way off normal.
Next in 7 News, a massive inferno engulfs a building in Sydney, coming up incredible pictures taken by nearby residents as fire crews struggle to put the flames out. And damning revelations from the White House. The US Secretary of State says he knows exactly where the coronavirus came from. That's next. Fire has engulfed a building in Sydney South, destroying several businesses overnight. Emergency services arrived at the scene around 10:30 to find the property well alight. At the peak of the inferno, 60 firefighters were on the scene, battling the blaze. They managed to get it under control after around 3 hours. Horrified onlookers recorded these pictures on their phones. No one was injured. The White House says it now has overwhelming evidence the coronavirus originated in a laboratory in Wuhan, China. Their damning claims add ashore of further inflamed tensions between China and the West. Paul Caddick has more. Paul, the US increasing pressure on Beijing.
Good morning, Anne. The United States has really ramped up its criticism of China and its response to the coronavirus outbreak. As Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today said, there was, quote, enormous evidence the spread of COVID-19 started from a lab in Wuhan, echoing claims made by Donald Trump, also alleging that China covered up the severity of the outbreak and hoarded supplies early on.
Remember, China has a history of infecting the world, and they have a history of running substandard laboratories. These are not the first times that we've had a world exposed to viruses as a result of failures in a Chinese lab.
I think they made a horrible mistake, and they didn't want to admit it. We wanted to go in. They didn't want us there.
The United States still has the highest number of recorded coronavirus cases of any nation and has just recorded its deadliest day with 2,900 lives lost. Here in New York State, tragically, another 280 people lost their lives in just 24 hours. But that rate is the lowest it's been in more than a month. A sign restrictions are working, say authorities, as New Yorkers are urged not to get complacent, to keep social distancing, wearing a mask, especially as the warmer weather sees more people out and about.
I'll come back to that ugly word, that dirty word I mentioned the other day, boomerang. That's the word I want you to think about when you think about what could go wrong, where the disease seems to be going away and then reasserts, and the cases come on more and more.
With 1,000 police officers patrolling the city's streets and parks to make sure people are still following the rules. From New York, Anne, back to you.
Thank you, Paul. Billionaire investor Warren Buffett says his company has recently sold every airline stock in its portfolio. The move means Berkshire Hathaway, the international conglomerate founded by Buffett, has dumped $4 billion in airline stock since the coronavirus hit. Buffett says the pandemic will change the way people travel for years to come. A Bolivian Air Force plane on a humanitarian flight has crashed, killing all 6 people on board. The twin-engine turboprop plane was carrying 4 Spanish citizens who were en route to catch a flight back to Spain. The plane crashed near the city of Trinidad shortly after takeoff. Hollywood's toughest actresses and stunt women have teamed up for a blockbuster fight scene filmed entirely in isolation. Charlie's Angels star Cameron Diaz uploaded the clip, which also features Scarlett Johansson and our very own Margot Robbie. No stars were harmed in the making of this video. Next in 7 News Sport with Jackie Felgate, we're live with the latest as NRL players return to their clubs and the spectacular journey that was supposed to celebrate the return of the Dutch Formula One Grand Prix.
Good morning. The New Zealand Warriors have spent their first night in isolation after flying into the country yesterday. Chief League reporter Michelle Bishop is in Tamworth this morning where the Warriors are based. Hello, Michelle. What's the team done so far today?
Good morning, Jackie. Well, certainly no signs of jet lag at all with the Warriors. They've been up and about familiarising themselves with their new home. They'll be isolated behind me at Scully Park for the next 14 days. Today's all about, getting to know, getting their head around that 40-page document. Now, all clubs will be briefed today, taken through that document, which outlines the do's and the don'ts of the biosecurity measures. The Storm, they started early. Josh Addo-Carr was front and centre of their talks. Social distancing and temperature checks are in full swing. But the trouble is with the Storm, they're unsure about exactly where they'll be based. They're waiting today to be told by New South Wales Health it'll be okay for them to base themselves at Albury. Let's take a listen to Storm boss Dave Donoghue.
There's a lot of stuff that are out of our control. For us, the mindset is we've got to be agile. We've got to take an agile approach to this and be able to adapt to whatever's thrown our way.
The sanitiser is flowing thick and fast. All eyes are on all of these NRL players. They have to get it right. They can't afford to drop the ball with that May 28 start date approaching. Jackie.
OK, thank you very much for the update. Michelle Bishop reporting live there. Meanwhile, there's growing positivity the AFL could restart by mid-June. Geelong captain Joel Selwood is relieved the long period of time in hubs are on the back burner, but has told 7 News he's prepared to suck it up if he has to.
There might be a time where we just might have to, pull up our socks and get it done for the supporters and sponsors out there and footy people in general, just to enjoy the game and get a bit of normality back.
Players are hopeful they can ramp up their training in larger groups when the AFL releases its plans next Monday. Cricket Australia looks to have solved its cash flow crisis. The governing body has reportedly secured a $50 million bank loan. Cricket Australia boss Kevin Roberts has been heavily criticised for standing down more than 200 staff until next month to save $3 million. CA could be forced to loan as much as $150 million more if India's lucrative tour of Australia is cancelled later this year. The stars of Formula One are still coming to grips with video game racing, judging by the start of this morning's virtual Dutch Grand Prix.
And away we go in Brazil with a spin immediately for Van Dorn, who's trying to hold it together, but he can't. And he's heading backwards. It's Alex Albon who goes into the lead.
The Red Bull team has released a special video to mark what should have been the return of the first Dutch Grand Prix in 35 years this weekend. Max Verstappen and teammate Alex Albon took an epic trip through Holland in their race cars, visiting some of the country's iconic locations. Spectacular. And parts of the sporting world are slowly coming back to life as coronavirus restrictions begin to ease. Professional tennis made a return for the first time since March at the Tennis Point exhibition series in Germany. But it isn't completely back to normal with no spectators, line judges, ball boys or coaches in attendance. Players aren't allowed to shake hands or even shower at the facility after their matches, and sets have been reduced to the first 2-4 games. So many changes in the things we know so well, aren't there?
Yeah, it's still good to see them playing, isn't it? Thank you,
Indeed.
Jackie. Next in 7's Morning News, the national weather forecast right around the country. It can be hard to stay motivated during lockdown, but this father and daughter you're about to meet appear to be doing okay. Confined to her home, the tiny 4-year-old has been forced to practice her cheer routine in the living room with Dad doing the heavy lifting.
Let's go. Say it. Let's go beast mode. Let's go beast mode. And let's get it. Hit this one. 1, 2.
The video has gone viral, even catching the eye of Olympic gymnastic champion Simone Biles. The father and daughter duo have quickly gained quite a following thanks to their practice videos. Taking a look at the weather now around the country. Gusty southwesterly winds in the wake of a complex low are triggering a few showers over southern Victoria and coastal New South Wales. And there's a cold front to the southwest of WA. Around the capitals, Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra all sunny today. Melbourne a possible morning shower, 16 degrees. Hobart cloudy, also 16. Adelaide cloudy, temperatures reaching 18. Perth showers, a possible storm and 22. Darwin mostly sunny and 33. And that's 7 News to Now. We'll keep you up to date throughout the day. Our next bulletin is at 4 p.m. I'm Ann Sanders. Thanks for your company. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.